The Heresy Accountabilibuddies Podcast is dedicated to all things Horus Heresy. This podcast delves into the grimdark universe where Primarchs clash, legions rise, and loyalties fracture faster than a Land Raider's track. But it's not just about the lore of the Horus Heresy. The Accountabilibuddies also explore the gaming side of things, from painting and modeling tips to product reviews and ideas to help you in your hobby. So, whether you're a seasoned Forge World veteran or a fresh-faced scout, this podcast is your Vox channel to the galaxy. Expect discussions on lore, modeling, gaming, and maybe even the shenanigans that your hosts somehow seem to find their way into. Remember, in the grim darkness of the far future, there are only two things you can count on: heresy and your trusty Accountabilibuddies.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to another episode of the Heresy Accountabilibuddies Podcast, episode 84 to be precise. I am one of your hosts. I am Duncan, and with me tonight are my friends.
Ryan.
Jamie.
Jack.
And John.
And tonight we have a pretty special episode geared up for everybody. But before we get to that, we'll go ahead and kick it over to our sponsor post.
Do you love resin bases? Then go to our sponsor, Elric Hobbies, for all of your basing and basing accessory needs. Use code HeresyABB at checkout for a discount. Legendary Monument Hobbies. Monument Hobbies is a one-stop shop for all of your painting needs. Use code HeresyABB at checkout for a 5% discount on your purchase. Pop Goes the Monkey. Find maker of third-party accessory bits of arms, legs, backpacks, and more, where you can get 10% off your first order over $125 with code HeresyABB at checkout.
So an event that we actually do need to do a bit of a shout-out for is for our friends up in Indiana, being hosted over at the Battle Barn. It is, I think, the second narrative event for their 2024 Heresy season at the Battle Barn. It is the Subsector Epsilon Conquest. It is scheduled for Saturday, June 15th, 2024 at 9 a.m. There's a $20 entry fee. Points are 2,500 with two 500-point sideboards. It's a 3-round event. First round being 2,500. The second and third rounds both being 3,000 points using the sideboards. The doors are opening at 9, dice are at 10, lunch is at 1. Prize drawings via the raffle system is going to be no later than 7 o'clock. After that, they're going to be doing something called Legion Fight Pit. I'm not 100% certain on what that is. I think it's somewhat similar to Praetor Fight Club, but I'm not anywhere close to 100%. Currently, everything is set up to where everyone has to have a fully painted army. People are encouraged to bring one additional model other than just your army to track the space that your army is fighting for on their big battle map board. Prizes are going to be awarded by a raffle system. Attendees get tickets by one for entry, one for bringing snacks or drinks for others to share, bringing a Highlander list that we all know what a Highlander list is, one for completing games before time is called for game ends, one for winning games, one or more possibly depending on however many secret missions that you get completed during your games. Everyone should expect unique asymmetric missions with sector and table sector specific modifiers. And I want to mention that Battle Barn and Circle City Heresy are allowing dog tags from Music City Heresy as well as from the Michigan crew up there. This is being run by Nick Mayer. Anyone wanting to find the event, you can just go to Facebook and go to events and search for the Subsector Epsilon Conquest. I don't know if Jack and myself are going to be going up there. I'm hoping that we can. I'm hoping we may even be able to drag along a third member from the Lexington area. That'd be kind of neat. But look forward to that, and hopefully I'll look forward to seeing people up there. And so there's not been a lot going on in the Heresy world lately. However, in the Games Workshop world and the releases world, there has been a bit going on. John, I know we haven't done anything for 2 weeks. Why don't you tell us what's been coming out lately with the releases?
Sure. You want to do hobbies first?
I mean, we can. And in fact, I'll even start it off yet. It'll be easier that way. The past 2 weeks, I have put the final coat of white down on 30 World Eater Rampagers and put the first coat of white down on my champion model I'm doing for them, and that's it. I cleared up the basement in preparation for putting game tables down in said basement and built a shelf to hold terrain for said table. And sometime this week, Jack and I are going to go to Home Depot and get the stuff for the table. That's it. Jack, what have you done this past 2 weeks?
And Brian, what have you done the last 2 weeks?
I moved a game store from its old location to a location 4 doors down and 4 times the amount of space. That was about it.
Okay.
How about John?
Yeah, so I have had a bit of hobby time. I got more work done on the not Russes and not Sentinels for the Cobra Army. For the Russes, I got all the barrels associated with them. I got the main guns and then the coaxial cannons all in the mail, and I'm starting to organize those parts. I clipped out all the last few remaining pieces I need to put on, and then figured out how the turrets are going to work with these new aluminum barrels in. I got in a couple of different orders, the Dragon Forge and other company based in Elric's Hobbies bases, and got all those painted and washed and then dry brushed. And so now they're ready for the Sentinels and the other troopers that I'm going to be putting together as everything comes together, as well as the ogres that Michael print me and some other people. I went through and built a new spray booth. So I posted on our Facebook page as part of the Heresy Thursday that we've been picking up. But Amazon had a Facebook ahead for a spray booth with a waterfall backing, and I've seen it in a lot of different hobby posts coming from a lot of the kind of professional modelers and professional Gundam builders. Where as you're spraying, you're kind of spraying into the waterfall. So the water that's falling in the back of the spray booth is in front of the normal filter. And so that the water kind of catches most of the overspray. And so that way you don't end up with a lot of stuff all over your hobby area and in your lungs. And so you've got the water catching that, as well as an activated charcoal filter going, as well as a normal airbrush filter. And then it also comes with 3 very large fans. And so I found this on Amazon and went ahead and picked it up, got it installed. And because it is water, I recommend double checking everything before turning it on for the first time. As the first time I turned it on, it sprayed all over the place. But I got it sorted out. It actually has LEDs built into the frame of the airbrush booth, so it works really nice in making sure you don't have to have a bunch of extra lights around like the old kind of Chinese fold-out spray booth. But it's definitely made by that same company because it uses the same backer, the same back filter. It's a little narrower on the inside, but I definitely like it. I used it this week to spray the bases and things as I was working.
How'd that work out for you, John, when you did that? Does it collect like the actual particulate from the spray in a specific container?
Yeah, I was kind of wondering about that.
So what it does is it collects it into the water, and the water goes through an activated charcoal filter. That filter is picking up most of the paint matter from the water, and then the water is dumped back into a reservoir on the bottom, and it's picked up by a pump and shoved back up into the spray booth itself.
So, like, the activated charcoal filter, like, do you have to change that? I mean, like, how often how often you have to change it? I mean, like,
you rinsed it out. So you've got the normal kind of blue and white foam filter in the back, and that's behind the waterfall. But the activated charcoal filter is at the bottom of the waterfall. And that one, it says rinse it out with some soap and with some warm water, and then flip it over. And that's all it recommends you do every couple months. And so I'm going to keep an eye on it as it goes forward to make sure, I don't get any mildewy smell or anything like that. But I'm still kind of experimenting with it.
Okay, so I'm not quite getting something apparently. So they're literally saying that the deactivated charcoal picks up the particulate from the water as the water is flowing through it, and you just flip the charcoal over every few months.
Yeah, and you can wash it out as well.
So it doesn't really need to have the activated charcoal filter replaced very often, if ever.
Right.
Okay, and I've got to ask, how much did this cost?
$300.
Yeah, I was gonna say I just looked it up on Amazon right now as we're talking about. Us like, damn, that's a bit more than I thought it would have been.
I mean, considering the other spray booth was between $70 and $120.
Yeah.
And if you're airbrushing as much as I do, I remember there was one time I had airbrushed a lot, and before we'd redone our HVAC system, the intake valve for the whole house aircon was 10 feet from my room, and it was ultramarines blue. It was a white filter, and it had come out ultramarines blue because I'd been airbrushing a couple of squads one day. And even though I had the filter on and the fan running, I hadn't poured it outside because it was, I think it was in the winter, and so it was cold, and I didn't want to let the heat out. But it was still porting through that air filter out into the same room. But that filter apparently didn't catch much or didn't catch enough where the whole house filter was blue. So this will make it so that I'm not going to be catching as much. It has been, my dad used to work for TI and Raytheon and Triquint, back in the 80s, and they were using this type of thing for industrial enamel paints when they were powder coating missile parts and things like that. So, it's something that's been used in a lot of other things. It's nice to kind of see it miniaturized and in an affordable price range. But I will definitely keep an eye on how it works with some of the other stuff. Back in the day, it was only used with enamel paints because it was thought that it would kind of destroy the acrylic paints as you worked. But I was working with really thinned down, very light colors over black, and I wasn't seeing any difference from what I usually do.
Okay. I think I find that very interesting, and I actually may get into that. I want to know how you've done with it after about a month or so of using it, if you don't mind my saying so.
Sure. Yeah, and I've got some stuff set up right now. I do want to kind of pressure test it before I've got a work trip coming up in a couple weeks, so I want to try to get some things base coated so I can do some of the spot colors while I'm on a work trip. And so I've got a bunch of stuff lined up together to make sure that I could give it kind of a hefty run this week.
Okay. Well, I think probably pictures and stuff like that would probably be very interesting for people.
Yep.
Okay. Sorry for tangenting on that. It's just something that really interests me.
No, you're good. And I think that's everybody, right?
Oh, I haven't. I don't have. I didn't have any hobby this week. I've been having the past 2 weeks have been crazy stuff at work, broken finger. And
yeah, how's your finger doing, man?
I got to go back to the orthopedic on Thursday this week. It still hurts quite a bit, and there's like a divot in the side of my finger. Is the best way to describe it. It's not hurt. I'm able to actually bend it a little bit now, which until late this week I haven't been able to actually even bend it, like more than like 30 degrees or something like that. So I'm getting better, but it's just going to take a while.
Yeah.
And then, like, I've had, as I was getting ready to say, I've had a bunch of really weird home stuff going on. I'm having to rebuild a deck because part of it caved in. It, like, basically dry rotted and caved in. So, yeah, I'm having to fix all that with everything else going on. So
that's always fun.
Oh, yes. It could be a lot worse, but, time is a precious commodity for me right now. Let's just put it that way.
I can believe that. Well, with everyone having touched off on our hobby, John, now would be a good time for you to tell us about the news and stuff that's come out.
Sure. So this week in pre-orders, about the only thing that Heresy can really use is a new Shield Captain model from the Custodes. This is that kind of short, squatty boy that we saw that came out with the army a few months ago. Also, they turned the Siege of Farak, the old Imperial armor worked through into its own audio and normal book. And there's a normal and collector's edition coming out next week as well. That's some other generic releases for Sisters of Battle and Gene Stealer Cult on the normal GW front. On the third-party side, we've got kind of right after we recorded on the 23rd of May was the GW Skull 2024 annual kind of Warhammer video game celebration. This is something they do every year, and they previewed all the different video games that are coming out. Starting off with Mechanicus 2. I really liked the first Mechanicus game. It was kind of like an XCOM that didn't make you hate really high numbers that you would miss on a 95. But Mechanicus was a very different kind of XCOM-like game that you could play through. It was turn-based squad tactics game. There's also a Talisman. We got the release date for Space Marine 2 on September the 9th. We also got an announcement that there's going to be multiple PvE environments, which are going to be 3 people versus the Tyranids or Chaos or whatever we're fighting. There's also going to be 6 versus 6 player versus player combat. Then there's going to be a Space Marine VR game that's going to be set up in kind of these VR chains that are going around called Space Marine VR Defenders of Avarak. Secret Lair, which is a company that makes gaming chairs, came out with an Ultramarine gaming chair, which I pre-ordered because I'm redoing a lot of the way my
Did you get it,
offices
John?
are
Did
set
you
up.
get it?
I did.
John, I'm
I did.
not even going to pretend that I'm surprised by you ordering that gaming chair.
I'm currently sitting in a Cyberpunk gaming chair, and so I will have a Ultramarine gaming chair come October. They announced a DLC.
How bad was it? How much damage was that?
That was like 600.
Oh my god!
God.
But I mean, I used to go through a chair a year, so considering that this Cyberpunk chair has lasted me almost 3 now, and still going, I think it's kind of worth the price.
Okay.
And so we also got an announcement of a DLC for Bolt Gun coming on June 18th. DLC for the Rogue Trader game.
Yep,
as
that's
well
one I'm
as
looking forward to.
Yeah, as well as the Steam Deck announcement for that. Dark Tide is getting a new expansion. Vermintide's getting a new expansion. Blood Bowl's getting a new expansion. Speed Freaks is finally getting an open beta. It's a video game where you play as orcs and basically Mad Max it up. They're announcing more expansions for the Horus Heresy Legions card game video game. And then the Lehman Russ tank is coming to World of Tank. So you'll be able to have Lehman Russ's Dorns as well are also in this image. Lehman Russ's Dorns, and there was the Vindicator and Predators that came out a few years ago. On the same day, we also got Starforged dropped an Ultramarines silver ring. And so I've got the Starforged Aquila. That was my previous wedding ring. And so this is kind of a rather detailed sculpted Ultramarines ring. It's got Gulliman's seal on it. It's kind of more 40K than it is Heresy. So I think I'm going to pass on this one. The pure silver one is 129, and then silver and gold is 593. So Starforge makes good stuff, but their rings are always kind of expensive, and I do appreciate that they're silver since I'm allergic to nickel and some of the other kind of metals you get in rings. And then from Joy Toy, the G.I. Joe scale Space Marines, we got a squad of Deathsworn Space Wolves. These are the guys with the wolf head and the different grenades and the axes and everything. And also the announcement of Lehman Russ Primarch of the Space Wolves coming. Was that?
I said, yep. It looks very cool.
Yeah, the GW site, you get an exclusive T-shirt if you buy him. And he comes with a ton of accessories that kind of befit the Lord of the Wolves. He's got a giant double-headed axe, a single-bladed kind of tomahawk, a big sword, a little knife, 7 hands, 2 different heads, a little pistol, and a wolf shield, as well as a display stand. And at GW, he's $139. So, USA Gundam and a couple other stores. Even Amazon has started to carry the Joy Toy stuff. So you don't necessarily have to get it from Warhammer merch or merch.warhammer.com or whatever it is. You can always go through other places to get it. But these Joy Toy things, they announce them way in advance. And so it says that release date's going to be sometime in October or November for the Russ.
Phew. That's yeah.
I know a certain one of our friends of the Hobby Podcast is quite enthused by it. I don't know. Will has price, but he was very happy to see it.
Iron Hands Will is what he's usually known as locally, but he's definitely has a huge contingent of Space Wolf, so he jumped all over that. He ordered that one right off the bat, and I'm sure our local Byron did as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else, or is that about it?
That is everything I've got from the GW side. I think, Duncan, you had something to announce.
Wasn't there, what do you call it? Made-to-order terrain, too, that came out?
Oh, yeah, we covered that last time, I think. Okay. But, yeah, the made-to-order terrain dropped finally. The Void Shield Generator, some of the Sector Mechanica stuff came back out. And some of the plasma generators and heliotrope reactors, things like that as well, are all made to order right now. So again, you'll pay for it now, and you'll get it in 6 months.
Yeah.
So yes, John, you are right. I did have something to announce. Last month, and I do not mean May, we ran a contest based on people's artwork, their miniatures, and the fluff they had written up for their army. Unit, Praetor, etc., their special unit, whatever fluff they themselves wrote for their guys. We wanted to encourage people to put forth effort into making their hobby more themselves, putting more of it into themselves, or more of themselves into their hobby and having more fun with it. And we ran a contest that the winner would get a fully painted set of terrain from our friends over at Death Ray Design, who donated this terrain to us. And it is a full table's worth of ruined terrain. John has it in his possession and will be painting it up for the winner. And at the beginning of the month, we actually determined who the winner was. And, well, by popular vote, which was none of us ourselves entering and none of us ourselves doing the vote, but by listener vote through the Discord, it was determined that our friend Blake won the terrain. Strangely enough, Blake has also recently, and by recently I mean on the beginning of June this year, on the 1st, he ran an event in Alabama. I cannot recall what the event was called, but for a bit of a review about that and to congratulate him formally on winning the contest, Blake, how are you, sir?
I'm doing very well. Thank you, Duncan, and thanks everybody for having me back on. And thanks everyone for voting for me and Athon's backstory. I really do appreciate it. It does mean a lot.
Well, it was good. I read all the entries, and I really liked yours as well. So I actually agree with the community response of you being the winner on that one. But we don't have the terrain for you because John hasn't painted it, and he's going to be doing a bit of a project while painting it up for you. But you also did run the event this weekend. And what was it called again?
It was called the Scouring of Kairos Prime.
Okay. And where specifically did you run that?
So it was at High Ground Hobbies and Cafe in Madison, Alabama. The owner is Wes. And just a huge thanks to him for letting us put it on. It is definitely a destination hobby store and cafe. Dude, it is one of the coolest venues I've ever been to. It has an Airbnb in the basement that is Game of Thrones themed. He has a Magic the Gathering section. He has a full, I want to say 10 tables for wargaming. I think he's a commission painter too, and most of his terrain is second to none. It's his terrain that he has is better than pretty much any game store I've been to in a while, to be honest with you. Like, that's not pre-painted. He paints it all. Him and his staff painted all themselves, and it looks fantastic.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear this. But unfortunately, I don't think anyone else here was able to actually attend the event. So why don't you go ahead and tell us the lead up and tell us how it went, thoughts on everything, and take it away.
Yeah, so we started out a couple months ago. We've been building this up, and originally I had over 20 people that paid and signed up for the event. And then just like, 11th hour, last minute, life happens. People couldn't make it. One dude, he was 3D printing his some part of his army, and one of the molds cracked or his build plate broke. It was one of those things, and it was just like, I can't do it, dude. I can't have this army done. And he was going to do white scars, and it was going to be a really cool army. And then another guy had some medical issues I won't go into, and then a couple other people, just life happened, and then just had one just straight up no call, no show type deal, and it just is. We ended up with 11 total participants for the day. 3 people played interchangingly in the ZM mission, which was just 1,000 points, and it was more of like a teaching game, but very, very, very successful. And then I had 8 players for the actual event, and it just so happened to work out that I did have 4 loyalists, and no, it was more than 8. Sorry, it was like 10 guys. I think that's right. I have to like go back and look. It was either 4. It was either 4 on 4 or 5 on 5. A couple guys were late, so it kind of threw everything off. But that math doesn't math, so it might have been 13 people instead of 11. Just forgive me on that. I don't have my stuff with me to kind of like as far as that goes. But so Kairos Prime is in this small little sector called the Dismal Gulf, and that is thanks actually to your suggestion, Duncan. I really appreciate that, because I've been trying to figure out what kind of like sector of the galaxy we could call it. And it's going to be in this. It's it's just the southeastern fringe of the Milky Way, which is kind of like where I live, so it just works out.
I think all our listeners actually live in the Milky Way, but I could be wrong there.
Yeah.
And if you're not, please email us.
Yeah. Well, I meant like just because the southeastern side of America. So it was the southeastern side of the galaxy. It's kind of like where we're going. But to kind of give you guys a backdrop on it, it's a rebuilt metropolitan world that new. It has terraforming perfected before most of the other worlds were still working on that. And there's this giant river throughout the center. It's called the Gigantus River. It's very important to the people of the world, or at least the major metropolitan city, which is Otessa. And originally, the amount of loyalists that had signed up for this, it was ridiculous. It was like 2 to 1. And I was having a really hard time trying to figure out how I was going to make this work. And it just so happened that 3 of the players in the event are all Alpha Legion. And so I had this really cool idea. I was like invaded by the twin-headed snake. So basically, by some type of ability unknowns to anyone other than the Alpha Legion, you've been infiltrated. And so the original idea was if all these loyalists actually showed up, I was going to just D6 it or D20 it. And if you got that number, then guess what? You are now under the influence of the Alpha Legion. And you were loyalists in everything but name. You just fight for the War Master. I thought that was a really cool way to fluff that. But the importance of this planet is actually due to its Dark Age of Technology weaponry that it has STLs for, and they have some in stock. So the way I wrote this little campaign out is the Alpha Legion has been here for a while, and they actually talked to this one commandant, the brother. He's basically the brother, but they're really just best friends of the governor of the planet. His name is Ulysses, and they talked him into basically betraying Jurgen. And Jurgen Distan was the governor of the planet. He is assassinated, and Ulysses basically takes over the planet under the help of the Alpha Legion. And then the Loyalists basically got a call from Jurgen because he did an all call for help. They show up, and then the Alpha Legion is already implanted. We had 2 missions. They ran it under their custom missions, and they ran 4 turns each. There was a lot of new players who I think the majority of guys in game 1 only made it to turn 3, but game 2 pretty much everybody finished in the allotted time. We had originally planned for a third game. However, Wes forgot that he had this like massive 52-person Mario Kart tournament that started at like 6 p.m. And I'm talking, dude, guys, like there were so many people, it was ridiculous when we were trying to get out of there. So we had to like wrap up by 6. Otherwise, we would have played a third round because everybody wanted to play. A lot of guys were spending the night there, so it all just worked. But it all worked out in the end. As far as what actually happened, it was a very, very close game or close campaign. Actually, the Loyalists lost 38-44. That's how close the campaign points were. It was really, really close. Right now the Alpha Legion has staved off the initial assault of the Loyalist, and they are beginning to load up the weapons to send to Horus on his crusade towards Terra.
So, how many points were each of the games?
They were 3,000 points. So we played standard 3K games. No named characters. You had to bring you had your own Praetor. We didn't do any type of custom Praetors or anything like that. But we had 3 Alpha Legion players, a Iron Warriors player, and a Thousand Suns player. And then we had 10. And then we had 4 guys played different armies. There was an Iron Hands, there was a Custodes, there was a Mechanicum, there was a Blood Angel, and there was an Imperial Fist player.
Okay. So were you limiting everyone to 4 turns in their games, or were you just letting them take the full 5?
So originally it was just, I had it set up for 4 turns. I didn't have it set up for 5. And the reason, is just because I was trying to get 3 games in, and I've come on here before and kind of talked about that. Like, really 4 turns is kind of the sweet spot when you're trying to do events. But by turn 5, the game's usually over. You don't usually make it past that. But we had a lot of new players, and there's nothing wrong with that. It just they took a little bit longer. Both my missions were custom missions. The first mission I pulled from one of the exemplary battles. It's one of my favorites, actually. It's a lot of fun to play. The way it worked is the defender set up all of there was a defender and attacker. The attacker had to place all of the objectives outside of his half of the deployment zone, or his half of the table. So he started, and then the defender went, and then they just interchanged on, I think, 5 objectives. It was 4 or 5. Anyway, the only way to score those objectives was you had to control them. And if you rolled a 1 through 3, you didn't score any points. 4, 5, 6, you scored 1 victory point. And on a 7+, you scored 3 victory points, and the objective was removed from the game for the rest of the game. And the only way to score 7 was if you were the attacker. And what I really like about this mission is, narratively, it really forces the opponent to move, like the attacker to move into the defender's deployment, and it's basically like you're scorched earthing as you're going through. And that was like one of my favorite missions, actually, that I've written / like kind of tweaked that GW did. The second mission was a all or nothing version of Command and Control from the Siege of Synthonia. It was, if you controlled 1 objective, you got 1 victory point. If you controlled both objectives, you got 4 victory points. But to kind of like add a little spice to it, we also did Shatter Strike. So you scored at the end of the game as well. The whole point of this was to try and talk about, or like it was really to try and put an emphasis on troop choices, and I think it went really well. Both missions were very, very well received. I also did a tetrary objective. I've kind of like gone through some of these privately with some of the guys here. It's called the Oath of Moment, and we all know what an Oath of Moment is as Heresy players. But it's a secret mission that you put towards you give to your players. They have 1 of 5 to pick from. They can only use that one, like they only use 1 per mission, and they can't reuse the same one. But it gives you campaign points, and you can max out 3 campaign points on most of them. It's up to a max of 3. What makes it cool though is even if you were to lose the mission, you still were able to put towards the war effort. So even though you lost the battle, you didn't lose the war, and that's really what my focus is on a lot of my missions. And that was very, very, very well received as well. Everybody, all 10 players, they loved the Oath of Moment. That was very, like, I'm going to use that going forward too. I was very happy with that.
Okay. So, are you planning on doing more of these going forward?
So yeah, actually, Mace from Scenic City Heresy has asked me to help him with ATC this year.
Mhm.
So I will also be helping EO the ATC event in Chattanooga on July 12th through the 13th. It's a teams game. It's $50 entry. It's 2 days. Friday, 12 o'clock p.m. registration, and then it's open gaming until about 5. They're going to break for dinner, and then after that we will go and we will do the Contemptor Cage match, which is a lot like Praetor Fight Club, but with Contemptors.
Yeah.
And it's as freaking fun as you think it is. And then after that, we're doing a ZM Mega Battle. Last year, we had about 20 guys playing 1,000 points each. It's very narratively driven. We're going to have a lot of fun with it. And then Saturday, battle briefing starts at around 8:30. We start to roll dice around, hopefully by 9. And then it's 3 missions. We have to be done by 6 p.m. And then that's when the awards and everything will go out.
Okay.
And then I actually am in the talks with one of the other local stores where I live on August 24th. We don't have anything like officially written yet, but we're working on that. We'll do a 1-day event there, and we're going to be doing a 3K frontline, and then we're also going to be doing a ZM. And then in September, we're working on doing a 2-day event back at High Ground Hobbies and Cafe, and it's going to be it's probably going to be the culmination of everything for this year as far as Kairos Prime and the dismal Gulf sector, at least the primary planet. That's what the hope is. I've been talking to Alex Bayless and Lucas from Firex Gaming and a few other guys, getting ideas off them and what I can do to make this really successful. I'm really just having a lot of fun. Like, I have fun playing. I play a lot. I've logged, over 200 games at this point, at least, if not more. But truthfully, here in the last couple months, just the networking side of things and getting to watch other players play has been such a freaking joy. You guys, I just can't express how much. Like, I got chills right now talking about it. I really do, because I've just had so much fun and watching all these guys enjoy my content and like just how thankful everybody was. Dude, I had guys from Mississippi, Florida, Tennessee, Alabama. Like, they all came in for this, and I did it in under 3 months. And I'm so just like mind blown that I was able to get all these guys from all over the state. I mean, heck, my Facebook group now, Bama Heresy, last time I spoke to you guys, I had maybe 15 guys in there. I've got over 50 members now in that short of a time.
Very nice.
Yeah. So it's growing, and I'm having a blast doing it. So that's kind of like where we're at right now on that.
Okay. Well, that sounds really good to me. I'm happy that you've had other people reach out to have you do more in that area, specifically the mace thing. I'm glad that he reached out for that help. I know he's got, I believe his wife's pregnant and is due right around the same time.
Yep, and
So,
I'm like so happy to help him. Like it's
yeah,
we've
Mace is good
actually become
people.
really good friends in the last year. I met him at ATC 23. It's really funny because I was awarded the most narrative player of that event, and I just love that winning the contest kind of like doubles down on that for me because I put so much of my own like fluff into my army and everything that I really appreciate that and that it's recognized. And I hope that anybody that comes to anything that I'm a part of, they leave with something special, like favorite narrative moment or one of my stupid yellow hammers that if anybody's ever in the hobby hangout on Wednesday nights, y'all talk me into it. So our trophies are freaking yellow thunder hammers.
There you go. Shout out to Brian for that one.
Yep. That's a shout out to Brian.
Okay. Well, it sounds like everyone who showed up had a good time. And it sounds like you got more plans for all that in the future. And personally, I'm glad to hear that. I'm sorry.
Very good. Does anybody have any
And
questions or anything about the event or like want to know anything about it?
I think you're doing it the right way. You're slowly building it up, and like you said, you're not really using the fixed rules quite yet for custom Praetors and things like that. But I think as you get more guys in and as you get more comfortable, maybe adding that on or looking at other stuff that people have run before would be good.
Yeah,
yeah,
so like we are implementing it at ATC. Mace really liked that idea. The only thing we did is we dialed it back. We're not doing the FireX Forge, which is actually really, really cool. We're just doing a console upgrade, but any upgrade's an additional 15 points. So really, I think I think that's about accurate for a chaplain Praetor because they really need to be at least 50 points.
so
That
you're saying it's an additional 15 points to take the console.
yes, the console upgrade
plus the actual console upgrade.
Right. So
itself.
for the chaplain, it's 50 points. For the librarian, it's 60. And
Okay.
the reason for those things is like leadership 10 is so important when you're doing psychic checks. And if you have a stubborn unit that's leadership 10, you're almost guaranteed to get your psychic abilities off unless you box cars. So it really kind of it kind of like balances out a little bit. Like, do you pay the 60 points for a Praetor for like for telepathy or something like that, or do you maybe not? It is warranted. I feel like it's the same thing with the Mortat. The Mortat is one of the best consoles in the game, hands down. And when you can give them 2 Archaeotech pistols to make it even better, it gets real nasty real quick.
That seems a little oppressive.
Yeah, well, people do it, so it's
I
just
know people do oppressive things all the time.
Yeah,
and there's obviously counters to it. So I'm not saying I'm not trying to yuck anybody's yum, but it just seems like something that might be a bit over the top in my mind.
Yeah, well, that's why it's a 60-point upgrade instead of a 45 one because that is really strong.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I mean, the thing is if you're facing down a bunch of contemptors, that right there kills contemptors real quick.
Oh yeah. I am absolutely certain that it would. So, what was your favorite army looking at overall that you saw on the tables?
So the army that won. So we have like the Artisan of War award went to Brian Dunlap of Murfreesboro, Tennessee. His Thousand Sons are probably one of the prettiest Thousand Sons army I've ever seen.
Cool.
He, how we are so used to seeing that candy apple red. Dude, his look like they've been out in the desert fighting for months on months, and they're the survivors of Prospero or something, and he has dulled that down and I can't do it justice by like trying to describe it. You just have to see it. You'd have to go to his Instagram or something. But man, it looked phenomenal. There was a lot of really good. The Iron Warriors player, Trevor, I can't remember his last name right now. He'll have to forgive me. He's from Pensacola, Florida. His Iron Warriors looked really good. Rustin Noel from Prattville, his Blood Angels looked great. His basing is top notch, very good. His brother Ron brought his Alpha Legions, and then Michael Blakely, he had Alpha Legion as well. They look good. And then Matthew Callis, I think Matthew is from Huntsville, or right outside Madison. He's like 15 minutes from the store. He also had Alpha Legion, and that dude brought an armored spearhead with a ton of tanks, and they looked pretty good too. So the Imperial
That's
Fist
an
player,
interesting combo.
yeah. Hey, dude, that dude, he's just like, I love tanks. So I was like, man, cool. That's what you want to run them. And Andy Smiley, he ran Imperial Fist. His were pretty cool. He actually tied with Paul Bowen, who ran Iron Hands for the Praetorians champion, which is the player who scores the most CP for the Loyalist. And then Ron Noel actually scored the most, and it was really close actually. So those two guys scored 12 campaign points for the total event. Ron scored 13, and then a couple other guys were really close. It was like 10 CP. It was really, really close. And actually, after the first mission, I didn't know who was going to win because it was 27-28, and then like mission 2, the traders just blew it up. It was there was like 3 guys who maxed out on campaign points, and it was like, oh, this is good.
Because they got motivated.
Yeah, they did. They really did.
Okay. One thing I do want to ask, this is pretty much my last question that I have. After having gone through everything and setting it up, taking people, running the event, playing everything, is there anything that you feel that you did that you would like to change and to have done differently?
Yeah, for sure. The first thing that I'm doing going forward is I'm using Google Docs and Google Forms to have people write down their name, their loyalty, their army, and that way I don't have to like track everybody down, run everybody down to get like on the same page of what they're playing. I want to do a QRS code so I don't have to. They can just cling it from their phone. I'm working on that right now, actually. Well, that was one of the things I was doing before you guys came on. And so I'm just trying to get that squared away. I think, the Google form of people like uploading their CP would be a lot easier than me having to like chase 20 dudes down and then like hand calculate it up. It'll be just already done in the Google form. That's just quality of life, really. The other thing is we had some minor issues with our trophies. So unfortunately, we didn't actually get to pass those out for the event. There was some miscommunication, and then we just kind of dropped the ball. But going forward, we know what we want to do. So we're actually working on printing those and sending those out to the guys through the mail. And then otherwise, I'm really just waiting on feedback. I want to see what all of the guys want to do, like what they liked, what they didn't like. I know that I talk about I really want to push troops and scoring, but honestly, some guys just want to go in and beat the shit out of each other, and so there's nothing wrong with that.
I don't know anybody here that likes doing that at all, Duncan. Right?
No, I'm not that. I'm not that bad. I mean, I just go in there and
How many rampagers do you have now?
Let's not go into that. Okay.
He's more elegant than just beating the shit out of stuff. He uses chainsaws to gently, fillet limbs apart.
Well, so I'm actually looking at doing a couple of different kill points. One of my missions, I can't really go into detail because it's going to be at ATC, but it's pretty spicy. I am really, really liking it. I can't really go in. I want to go into it. I want to talk to you guys about it right now. I can't, just because I don't want to spoil it for the player base. But there's some really cool kill point missions out there, other than just Blood Feud. You know, Blood Feud's is the only one in the core rulebook of Age of Darkness. I think it's page 312 or something like that. But there are some like, I have found some really cool stuff, and I really hope to one day use those mission cards that you guys were talking about a couple episodes ago. Whenever those get uploaded, I will definitely be a thief in the night and stealing some of those.
That's fair. I think we can all respect that.
So, Blake, one quick question. And did you have anybody using Duct Eye this weekend?
In Duct Eye?
Yeah.
I don't know. There was one guy who actually. There was one guy who used Veterans, and that was just kind of like, what? You're using Veterans? But I don't know if anybody used Induct. I personally am going to use Induct Eye either in my Traders of Ultramar list or in my Raven Guard going forward, just because I really want to run a fourth group choice, especially for like FireX campaign events and LVO. Those major events are so focused on
scoring,
like points of interest, not just scoring, but points of interest and things to interact with. And when you only have 2 units of those, you can't really do a lot. I mean, you can, but you don't get the full immersive experience. And I'm the kind of player that I can build around that. I have enough killy shit that I can sacrifice 160 points for a third troop that has chain bayonets, a Voxcaster, and then a Power Fist and Artificer armor if I take it. So
I don't think
that's usually
Artificer armor on their sergeant.
What's that? Oh, like Inductite? Yeah. So no, they can't. But the Ultramarines, if you take a chainsword and 2 plasma guns and a Rhino, that's 160 points. Yeah. So that's what I'm like. That's more of where the 160 comes from.
Okay. Well, I am glad to hear everything went well. I'm glad to hear everything you talked about tonight on that. It makes me feel real happy to know that even though there's not a lot of heresy going on from the official sources, that heresy is out there kicking butt and taking names and having fun events.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
I'm also going to go ahead and say hi to Zach, who has actually joined us this evening. Zach, hello, sir. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. I just kind of snuck in halfway through. Sorry about that.
You just kind of magically appeared, kind of like the Discord channel or something.
It happens.
I haven't really spoken or seen you since Adepticon, sir. Haven't had a chance to talk to you that much. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Now that Adepticon is over, I can start to rejoin regular society again.
That's good. I guess kind of what's been going on with you, sir? We obviously haven't talked for a while. How are things looking for next Adepticon, I guess? Or have you worked on anything recently? I'm kind of at a loss as to what to ask, honestly.
Myself and Derek went to Brian's little event last weekend in Lansing, which is fantastic.
Okay.
It was Memorial Day weekend. So it over at the new Hoplite Games location where they were still in the middle of setting everything up, which is going to be a fantastic place. So you've got a really big gaming section, which is separate by kind of like a little doorway area to the storefront area, which is fantastic. They've got a lot of food places around. There's like a Mexican place, like 2 doors down. 2 Chinese food places, like one across the street and then one in the same little building that they're on. really good turnout. Got 2 games in. I rode with Derek Wood on the way from my place to the event. We talked next year's Adepticon stuff. We talked about it with Brian once we got there, and like our little planning crew has had a couple of meetings to discuss what we plan on doing next year. So things are already in motion.
Well, cool. Do you have
I also
anything?
painted like a
Nope.
10-man Volkite squad, heavy support team.
That's
And
good.
they
They're
were
not last game.
fantastic.
I approve of that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I put together another 5 last cannon teams, or last cannon guys, but yeah, 10-man Volkite is nothing to sneeze at.
No. Volkites themselves are nothing to sneeze at.
Yep.
You know what I saw over the weekend that I just was flabbergasted by?
Tell
Was
us.
a 10-man Aether Plasma squad of Thousand Suns. That thing
What?
did like 76 wounds to a 10-man heavy Volkite squad. 76. It was the most disgusting thing I've seen, and I was just like, holy shit, that unit is dead. Even with the rerolls, just he killed so, like, just overkill, ridiculous. So guys, don't sleep on those things, because they're strength 8, rending 6, and they don't play.
Yeah, no.
That's what? Thousand Suns only?
Yeah, it's a Thousand Suns only one, and they don't get hot. It's kind of like the Warp Fire Blasters for the Word Bearers, except they don't pin.
Okay.
Don't get me started on Word Bearers and their Warp Fire throws. Those things are stupid.
Okay. Sounds kind of interesting. Honestly, I haven't even given much thought to those. Most of the time when I think about building a heavy sports squad, I think about building just Volkite, because I like Volkites, because Chum is awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh, it is.
dude, so you think about it. Just think about it this way: it's 10-man. It's a small blast template, but if you put a Nuncio Vox in there, you get to reroll those. You're rerolling,
Mhm.
and it has Aki Enforced, which makes it +2 strength. So it goes from strength 6 to strength 8, and you're really just fishing for Rens. But dude, that unit was so, like, I was just like, dude, I want to build that. Just because the complete shock factor on his opponent's face when that happened was kind of like, WTF. And
You
it
still
was
have
like
your
going,
Thousand Suns, right?
yeah, it's Thousand Suns, dude. Like,
Yeah.
it was impressive. Like,
Okay.
actually, there was a lot of things. One of the Alpha Legion players actually brought a rotor cannon squad, and I was like, that's awesome, dude. I love rotor cannons, because I love rotor cannons, and that's like one of the units I put in my Thousand Suns, because you take the Akia or Anathema, whichever one neg 1's on top of the neg 1 from Shell Shock, and then it's neg 3 with Night Fighting. So that's super cool, because you're hitting on 2s with a Tech Marine, and then he's casting Mind Powers that increase the neg, like the negative modifier. And unless you're fighting a stubborn squad, you're gonna do some damage. And I thought that was super cool. When you see units like, it's like the veteran squad, man. Like, I'm like never seen a veteran squad other than like a Pride of the Legion list, and this dude just drop potted in a squad of vets, and it was, oh, dude, I had so much fun. Like, just seeing the different lists. Keontes, with his Mechanicum and his Titanicus, he has a really cool backstory on his army. And he took a Warhound, and dude, there was so much Titan death over the weekend, like engine kill. But he had a rough game go against Sun Killers in the first game, because the Treasures of Treachery, that's what one of the Alpha Legion players took. I mean, I don't blame him. It's really good. But then the second game he played against Matthew's all tank list, and I think Matthew had a Fellblade. What's the one with the two big guns? Is that a Fellblade?
Glaive.
No, not the Glaive. The Falchion.
Oh yeah, no, that is the Fellblade.
Yeah,
the Fellblade is the one with the double-barreled.
The double-barrel boom
turbo thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one he had. I was like, and it was just like super heavy versus super heavy. So much fun. Like, oh my gosh, guys! Like, it was just being able to, like, that's something you don't really get to do when you're playing. You don't get to, like, just sneak over and look at people and just kind of be like, what's going on there? Oh, okay. But being the EO, you get asked a lot of questions, and just thankfully I'm pretty strong on like 90% of my rules. We only had to look up like 2 interactions, and I didn't even have to do like, dude, let's just roll for it, because I have no idea. I knew pretty much everything they asked, so that was cool.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to like ADHD over on that. It just made me think about that when you guys started talking
about that. No, dude, you're absolutely fine. You're absolutely fine.
Yeah. I wasn't aware of. I had been paying attention to what Thousand Suns can do. I just wanted a really good companion, heavy support squad to go along with my las cannons. So now I have a 45-inch range heavy support team to go along with the las cannon, so I can use both of them in unity of purpose when someone decides to take one of them out. Okay. So advanced reaction, where I can react fire with the squad that they're shooting at, and then pick one other squad to also shoot down the attacker. So
you said that you've been working plans for Adepticon next year?
Indeed. Yes.
Anything you can preview us with, or maybe give us a bit of a hint as to what you might have going on?
I can tell you it's going to be, the ideas that we have are going to be bigger than anything we've done before. Okay. Flat out. It's just, yeah. Yeah, we're not quite ready to put out specifics yet, but we're taking a different approach to a couple of things and how we present ourselves, and it's I don't know, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be good. So that's the only thing I can really come out and say. I think that is fair to say.
That sounds good to me.
Well, there's one thing you shouldn't announce though, because you already announced it to everybody in the group. Volkite Club.
Yeah, I forgot. Because I did that at it was like midnight or whatever. I finished it. So now I have, in addition to the Bolter Club shirts that are on bonfire.com, I just finished making Volkite Club. So it's the same kind of concept, but just has Volkite instead of Bolter, and then has 2 Volkite calibers on there instead of bolters. So all proceeds from the shirts go directly to my paying for stickers and whatever other tchotchke that I can afford. That way, my wife is less freaked out about it when I start charging all this stuff. So
makes sense. I know I got a Bolter Club shirt, so I'll probably end up having to take up a Volkite Club shirt. Now, if I got the Chain Axe Club, I'll take one of those too.
Oh, let me write that down. Yeah, that'll be interesting. Yeah, that'd be fun. All right, yeah, I'll do that. Okay.
All right, cool. I'll take that shirt too.
Okay. It may take me a bit to get that done, but
it's got to be a red shirt though, right?
I don't have the red comes later.
Yeah, I don't have any control over what color options the store has, fortunately. I wish I did.
It's all good. Gentlemen, does anyone else have anything else they'd like to ask or talk about? John? Brian? Jack?
We covered most of our topics tonight.
I just want to say once again, guys, thank you so much for letting me come on. I really appreciate it. You guys, it really means a lot to me that you guys value my input, and I'm so thankful.
Well, we're glad to have you on. We're glad to have anybody on who wants to come on and sit here and tell us about what's going on in their neck of the woods, especially when they're running events. So thank you for doing that. And thank you for running that event and coming on and recapping it for us. With no objections, then.
Also, thanks for helping with the ATC, too.
Yes, thank you for that.
Yeah, if there weren't any EOs, we couldn't be accountable to ourselves or our hobby, really. I mean,
Yes.
I do enjoy running events occasionally, but at the end of the day, if there ain't EOs, there ain't games.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and throw this out there. Anybody who's listening who runs a game or runs an event or has run them in the past or will run them in the future, thank you. You are absolute treasures in the community, people who enable us to sit there and play games with people in whatever venue possible. You are the unsung heroes of the community. And with that said, if there's no other objections, go ahead.
Let us praise the enablers.
Yes, you enable us to make our piles of painted plastic crack into something fun, and we appreciate it. And now, if there are no objections, listeners, I want to thank you for joining us on the 84th episode of the Heresy Accountabilibuddies Podcast. As always, I have been Duncan, and tonight I have been joined by
Brian,
Jamie,
Jack,
and John.
And our special guests tonight were
Blake
and Zach.
Thank you all, and remember, stay accountable to yourselves, to your buddies, and to your hobby, and we'll catch you next time.
there you go.
Like and subscribe, and see ya.